Okay, here we go. New stream is up. Battery died on my phone. Let's see if anybody hops over from the other stream here. Alright, who do we got here? Anybody coming over? Hey, King Uzi, first one here. You are the man. Thank you. Alright, folks are making their way. Yeah, super frustrating. Yeah, cool. Wow, this is awesome. We'll see. I was trying not to get too sidetracked by all the handy-manny stuff. Yeah, well, streaming problems, it happens. I don't lose any sleep. Peter is here as well. Awesome, very cool. Good to see everybody here. Yeah, the battery dies sometimes on the phone. Hasn't happened too often, but every now and then, you know, it's bound to happen. So, yeah, first world problems indeed. With everybody, like, well, that's good. Yeah, I wouldn't say that, oh, let's see, no audio? Is there no audio or what? What's the deal? Anybody hearing this? Everything looks like, yeah, don't get the XC3. Explain to me, justify your decision to buy the Good Deal Audio is on. What is the rationale for the XE3 purchase? Yes, I know. It's funny that you say that, Peter, because I had the exact same feeling. Like when I saw the announcement on Fuji Rumors, I was like, this is nothing. Like I really don't even feel anything. Like I can totally cope with this. And then like just like yesterday, I was like listening to the podcast and they're talking about it, and I was like, I kind of want that. And it wasn't like an actual thought. It was like just like a split thing that just came into my head. I didn't even entertain it. I was like, no way. No way I am not going to get that. Just like so many reasons to nope out of that one for me. To me, one of the, and yeah, Mr. Bananas there, I think that whether or not it's overpriced, it's hard to say. Yeah, exactly. The XT20 does seem as good or better. Like it doesn't feel like there's a lot of differentiation between something like the XT20 and the XE3, and like I mean, like a lot of these cameras, frankly, like when people are actually or asking, you know, for, well, I'm thinking about the XT2 or the XT20, it's like the difference in features, I mean, yeah, there's a handful of things, but like there's not a huge amount of differentiation between a lot of the cameras, or just technically speaking, even the XT2 and the X Pro 2, like, I don't know. It's hard to say. QAnon is back. Very good. The XE3 versus the XC20 boils down to joystick and Bluetooth versus tilt screen and drive dial. The Bluetooth on the GH5 is not something I have really used a whole bunch, but I can imagine that being handy. And it's just like, you know, why do they cripple their cameras too? That's another thing, you know. It's like you could have a camera that was totally, you know, with the flips or the tilt screen and all that other stuff, you know. I don't know. What exactly do you use Bluetooth for? Like for transferring images or what? Because like for me, the Wi-Fi on my X100F works really well. I just, you know, flop images over from the, you know, and most of the time I like to shoot RAW anyways, but I've heard some people, okay, so shooting a wedding, Wi-Fi sucks. I get that. That makes sense. to have the faster transfer then is what you're saying is the advantage of the Bluetooth. I mean, I know I really enjoy the Bluetooth connectivity when I am airdropping photos to myself or to someone else, using a phone or tablet as an external monitor. So am I correct in understanding that Bluetooth is just a better connection for using a tablet or phone as a monitor? It's just more reliable, doesn't like glitch and stuff like that, or is there like some other tangible, more different thing that I'm missing there? Because just less crowded. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, let me do something. Speaking of, and this is something I meant to do before, but somebody gave me this idea on the last episode. And now you can see like the full setup here. I don't know if this is better or worse. I got some lenses, some clip-on lenses for budget photography stuff, right? Like you got to start with the iPhone gear. Yeah, it widens things out. It makes my face look a little bit funny. Peter says, I tried remote shooting at a wedding and it kept dropping off. Oh, is that better? Okay, well, you want to see more. This is more like the closet. So now you can see exactly what I got going on here. I got the thing, and I don't know if you can see up there. And I don't want to touch it because like I have everything balanced here that the camera's stacked on, so I don't want to get too nuts. But like there's a diffuser down here, and I love this because this makes it look like my arms are really short, so you can see what I'm talking about when it's like yeah, it kind of enhances the lanky factor, which is one of the downsides of the wide lenses. But I've been having a little bit of fun playing with these things. There's like a macro lens and a kaleidoscope and stuff like that. Cool. Well, yeah, it's good. I guess, see, that's what I get. I'm like a close talker. An internet close talker. Let's see, FemGeek says, I thought about buying the lenses for my iPhone, but I'm still debating on getting the larger one. You mean like the telephoto one that like telescopes all the way out like that? Like I've seen some pretty long like zoom lenses. Oh, you want to see the kaleidoscope? Okay, well, I'll get to that at some point here. The kaleidoscope was kind of disappointing, honestly. It's like, it's kind of a, oh, okay. The iPhone 7s Plus. I have heard and seen some good shots with the iPhone. You know, it looks impressive. Frankly, for $30 though, I don't hate this stuff. You know, this is not bad for $30. I'm not unhappy with it. Do I still have that awful kaleidoscope thing? I might have discarded it, honestly. Or is this because I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna use that lens. No, I don't think I have the kaleidoscope thing. I'm sorry, I ruined all the fun. Yeah, they are supposed to be announcing the iPhone 8. It's like I'm still using the 6 Plus, and I was like driving home from the hospital today with Stephanie, and she's like, "Oh, are you gonna get the iPhone 8?" I'm like, I didn't even get the 7. The only thing I would like is if I could just get more storage space on the 6. Like I think this is a 128. Yeah, it's a very crappy. The kaleidoscope, yeah, I don't have the kaleidoscope, and I assure you that it's really not worth any of our time. I'm sorry. I feel like, you know, I feel like a dad. Like I do this to my daughter all the time. Like I ruin her fun. Like she has this idea of something that's going to be just like superb, and I'm like, you're really not going to like that nearly as much. Like when I'm eating sardines and she sees that it's sardine, or she sees that I'm eating it and she's like, no, I want to eat that. I'm like, you really don't. Just trust me, you don't. Then she insists on it and has a fit. So I'm like, okay, you want a sardine? Fine, but now you have to finish the piece of sardine, and then, of course, turns out I was right. She doesn't really want sardines. That's kind of the way I feel about, sorry, be in your face, a little close talking here for a second. I just want to try a couple of these other lenses. And it's sweet. Like, the clip is actually really solid, and it goes on the front or the back of the phone, which is just fun to be able to monkey around with that and do that. And I actually got these honestly more with video in mind, because there's an app that I got called Filmic Pro, but it's like the free version of that, which is like, well, how to find it on the App Store. It's under Filmic Pro, but it's not actually Filmic Pro. It's the other one that's like $2.99. And let's see. I don't know what the deal is with this one. This is supposed to be closer, but I don't feel like it. Wait, no, that went a little further away. I don't know if that one's way better. But I got these because I wanted to just try shooting some video stuff, like when I'm around campus, like when I'm at college. I want to just run around, not literally run around, but I want to do like, just make some short videos, maybe do something for my Instagram stories, with iMovie on my phone, and just shoot little clips, but use some of these lenses to get some different effects and just to play with it. That was my thought behind getting these lenses. And it was like, a couple bucks on Amazon. Haven't been unhappy with it. There again, I don't know what that's supposed to be doing. That's like, oh, this is a circular polarizer, I guess, CPL mobile phone. But yeah, QA, you were talking about those. I didn't see those when I was looking. I actually forgot, because it was you suggested that in in the chat, and of course the chat doesn't stay with the video, and so I the Moment V2 lens. Okay, I will look into that. I have kind of gotten really interested in the whole idea of being able to use cheap lenses for to have. It's pretty cool. Wow, Zeiss is making iPhone lenses. that's funny. I can't even imagine it. Yeah, that's a lot to spend on an iPhone lens, but I guarantee that there are people. Okay, now we're really, that's some detail. Face only a mother could love. Now I'm really in your face with that. Okay, that's too close. I'm not going to do that. Oh, yeah. Wait, do you mean this lens, or do you mean the Zeiss lens is a hipster lens? Maybe both. Little column A, little column B. I'm trying to think if I've ever shot with any. Oh, well, I have some Zeiss glass on my Sony, on the little Sony RX100 Mark IV. That's pretty cool. But I mean, honestly, somebody asked me, and I completely neglected to answer this question. I forget who asked this, but somebody asked if the Panasonic Leica lenses have the Leica look. And Daniel, in short, I absolutely love the RX100 Mark IV. It doesn't have the same feel as the Fuji, but it's so it's not as fun, but as a tool, it is outstanding, with the exception of the battery life being a little bit like, you got to buy a few extra batteries. But honestly, like the things that camera can do, and the size at which it travels, and its versatility between the flip screen and the viewfinder, I mean, it's half the size of any of the other, and I'm going to get in trouble with some Fuji files here for saying this, but like it just delivers a huge amount of performance and versatility in a package that's half the size of, and the Fuji's always like, oh, well, we can't fit this, we can't do this. And granted, I understand it's a trade-off. Like, I know that, the image quality on a Fuji camera is certainly better than the RX100 by a bit. Although I've made like 16 by 24 prints with RX100 files, which are 24 megapixels, shoots raw, 4K video, 5-minute clips, etc. King Uzi Leica look is a myth, and that was where I was going with that. It's like I don't know what a Leica look is. I mean, I've taken some pictures with Leica cameras that they look good, but I could take pictures that look just as good with a Fuji. If it's sharp, if it's well lit, well composed, if that's a Leica look, and just edited in black and white, then yes, absolutely. Um, but anyways, yeah, about the RX 100, I mean, it just does an incredible amount between having the like pop-up viewfinder, having a tilt screen that allows you to, like, in selfie mode, and the 4K video, granted in 5-minute clips, doesn't have an external mic, so the video is a little bit limited, but has good quality glass, 24 to 70 equivalent range with a minimum aperture of 1.4. I think the shutter speed, if you're shooting in burst mode, is like 9 or 12 frames per second if you put it at like high speed. And I mean, something that's like way more than you pretty much need for just about anything. And of course, since it shoots in RAW, you can do all the picture profiles. It has the log profile, for a couple of different log profiles, I think, for video, which, again, I mean, it's like all packed in a camera that's like this big. And it's got in-body image stabilization, and the bloody thing has a built-in ND filter. So when you're shooting video on that thing, it's like for stills, you want to drag the shutter, you want to do a waterfall picture where you get the silky water. It's like simple. You have a little camera that's this big, you balance it on a rock or balance it on something, and you put the timer on it and you go to town with it. I mean, it's just the one drawback, well, the two drawbacks, which are inevitable, are the fact that it's so tiny that, like, if you don't have like little infant hands, you're gonna have like you're gonna be messing around with it a whole bunch, and it's squirrely to operate, and to change between different functions, because there's not much real estate. And the other thing is, there is overheating, again, because it's so small and the battery compartment is so, and like the battery's tiny and like runs out of juice in fairly short order. So it definitely has some limitations, but in terms of like a one camera thing where, I could take it anywhere and feel really comfortable that I could get some great looking footage to, like, for B-roll or to voice over as part of a vlog. Beautiful, just absolutely fantastic. The ND filter, the log profiles, I mean, all the stuff that's built in that, it's just a powerhouse. And since they released the Mark V, and the autofocus is quite good too. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm getting the Mark V. The autofocus is like that much better. Maybe it's more better. Maybe it's better than that. To me, I didn't really, I didn't think it was worth upgrading, and I've taken a lot of hate for that. Good evening, Christopher Holiday from Seattle. Good to have you here. Daniel, to answer your question, how I use it compared to the other stuff, it's a camera that I feel like is very useful. When I have the opportunity, though, now I have been going through the effort. Hey, SuperKit91, nice to see you here. Yeah, like I definitely, there was a time, and a lot of it has to do with the style and like the type of vlogging that I want to do and the effort that I'm putting into it. And for certain things, yeah, I mean, I could do a lot more with it than I do, but right now I have been using the GH5 for almost exclusively, the GH5 and like manual lenses, like vintage lenses for my video work, and the X100F and a little bit of the X Pro 1, kind of splitting the photo work that way. But a lot of that, honestly, is just because I like them. They're more fun to shoot. Like, those cameras are just more fun to shoot. And with actually the RX 100 Mark IV has some like really high frame rate video recording as well. So you can do like super slow motion, like I think 980 frames per second or something insane like that. I mean, it's a pretty low quality, but when you're putting stuff on YouTube or you're putting something on Facebook, like, forget about it. It's just like, and those functions are definitely squirrely, and that's the one major downside. Generally, to describe the downsides with the RX 100 Mark IV, is that there's so much in there. The menu system is a nightmare. it's not a nightmare. Okay, that's an exaggeration. I don't love the menu system. Fuji has an amazing menu system. Panasonic, even for the amount of meat on the bone that they have with all the video specs and features in that side of things, Panasonic does a fantastic job with that too, in their menus. But Sony's menus to me always look a little bit all over the shop. Like I don't love them, but it just does so much, and it's in such a small package that it just gets a little bit much. To be able to make use of all of those features effectively, you have to put in a lot more work than what I would like. Yeah, back to the Leica look. Daniel says the Leica look has to do with the lenses. You can get that look from any high-quality lens. The phrase is micro contrast. It's for pixel peepers. Amen to all of that. Totally agree. And King Uzi asks if I received my vlog. I'm assuming, unless you shot a vlog and sent it to me. The vlog profile, yes, I have been using the vlog, and I have been editing with it, and I enjoy the color grading process. I could probably get away without it. I can try to answer questions as much as possible. I feel like getting the colors right with it is a little bit challenging. It's a little bit challenging. You have to put in some effort to match everything, but it definitely does give you the ability, especially if you overexpose and it's too bright, you can pull back a lot more detail from it, I've noticed, than like from the... And I have not updated to the firmware, because the new firmware apparently came out for the GH5, and I don't have the GH5 with me, so I can't update right now. And plus, I'm like way back in the queue. I have like 5 videos that I still have to get out before I start shooting new stuff from my trip to Canada. So Peter asked if I'm excited about the HLG HDR on the GH5 2.0 firmware. I don't know what most of that means, honestly. So maybe. I wouldn't say I'm excited about the 400, because the only thing I know is the 400 megabits per second. And I would say I'm a little bit intimidated, just because I'm guessing that that's going to make much bigger files, and I'm already shooting most everything in 4K, the 100 megs per second or 150 or whatever it is that they came with to start. And like I'm just like chewing up hard drives. Like I want to, I have a 1 terabyte hard drive that I use as like my vlog hard drive, and then I have a backup of that just so that I can kind of keep footage that I may want to sample from again, because I don't like keeping stuff forever. It's like I'm going to use it for when I use it, and then that's it. Like I don't want to like have to worry about a lexicon of things that I have digitally stored, and it's backed up here and it's backed up there and it's over here and it's redundant there, and it gets to be a distraction and takes the fun out of it. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing what that is like with the new firmware stuff, but I'm a little bit debating whether or not it's going to be that useful to me or whether it's going to be overkill. Peter says HLG is like a graded vlog out of the camera. That sounds really interesting. I will be excited to check it out. And I'm going to have I have a lot more videos to make than time to make them right now with school. But the live streams are nice for that, because the live streams, they don't really take any more time than just to have the conversation. So that's once I kind of get in my routine, and I definitely want to be doing more of these live streams. Does the update improve the slow-mo bitrate? Good question. I do not have an answer to that yet, and I will let you know ASAP. John, are you still here? John asked a question, what I think about Photoshop and editing photos, etc. I'm happy to talk about that, since I remember that was one of the things that was mentioned earlier. I don't know if John made it over from the previous stream. Manny wants to know if I take a picture of turtles. Oh, sweet. Hi, John. Yeah, I don't really take a lot of pictures of turtles, Manny. I don't. Yeah, as far as the photo editing, I think that it's important to be genuine about what you're doing. And I think that there are a lot of people who are against photo editing for disingenuous reasons. And I think that there are people who use editing or are for it for disingenuous reasons, which ultimately boil down to making yourself feel better or placing an artificial value or skill on your work. Not you personally, I'm just you, the royal you, right? And so to me, a lot of it is just like, what do you like? In terms of your work, and are you being honest about it? That's the other thing, because to me, I love editing photos, and I appreciate a well-edited photo. And the funny thing is, actually, I have a photo book. I just ordered a bunch of photo books for my Instagram profile. So like the timeline books, that there's a company called Zeno, Zeno, I believe. They print moving arresting video. Can you please tell what in your mind are key to getting moving interesting video? I will talk about that in just a second there, bold Pertune. But yeah, like I'm getting a series of the photo books printed out my Instagram timeline because I like looking back, there's like 5 years of photos, and it's just like there's so much there. So I get these little printouts for like $10, like one a month. I'm getting just one a month, ordering, kind of starting at the back from my very first, picture on Instagram, back when I hated Instagram, and coincidentally when I had just discovered HDR. Yeah, I don't know if any of you have gone through that phase. And, again, this fits in with photo editing because I just discovered HDR. And when I discovered Photoshop, oh boy, I was like, HDR effect, like, turn it to 11. And I look back at some of those pictures, and if you look at my Instagram, you can see some of just the most awful HDR stuff. And I was like, it looks good, like this is so cool, like HDR, and so your style and your tastes change, and you have to follow your curiosity and your styles and your tastes wherever they take you, I think, creatively. Otherwise, you're just doing or not doing something based on what other people, do or don't like. And I think, I don't want to say it's a problem, but it's something that I don't encourage people to do. Well, the HDR is something I don't encourage people to do because, if you're interested in it, you'll find it and you'll learn to balance it and do it appropriately, which is very, very gently. But I don't like try to encourage people to take good photos. Like, I try to encourage people to take interesting photos or things that make somebody stop and look, even if it's kind of like, what's going on here? Because anybody can take a photo that looks, I shouldn't say anybody can do, I mean, there are some like composite things that are just really highly produced, which are great. I mean, like, that's not something that appeals to me, but I don't hate on other people. It's just like, for example, I have never been a big fan of jazz music. But having played the guitar, I know that it's not just a bunch of random noise. And it's same thing with like, really heavy metal. There are a lot of people that are like, oh, that's just noise. And it's like, no, if you played an instrument, even if you play, if you're an R&B musician, you still understand that there's heavy metal that is incredibly stylistic and requires a huge amount of dedication and skill in order to be able to play. It's just not your thing. And I think that's kind of, my feeling with photo editing is that it needs to be, you need to be honest about it. That's the only thing where it really gets hairy to me, as long as you're not lying or doing something that feels dishonest. And with documentary stuff, there's a little bit more of a conversation that you have to have there. But the rule of thumb that I like to use is my editing enhancing the photo, or is it changing the photo into something else? And usually what most of my editing is, it's just changing some of the light, changing some of the contrast and stuff, and sometimes adding in some focused light where I can to accentuate the light, to make it feel more like what it felt like to me as somebody who was there. Like, I know what it felt like to me there, and then I want to use the editing to convey that feeling more clearly to other people. Because the truth is that, you know, even a really good photo, it's still going to lack somewhat. Like, you were there and that was your experience, but then you also take the photograph so that you can interpret it, or you can put more of your creativity. It doesn't diminish the value, right? Like, it's still your vision and your creativity that you're putting into the photo as you edit it. And if you don't take a good photo that's decently exposed in good light and in the right place and capture that moment to begin with, which certainly takes talent, like, you won't have anything to put the edits on. And so I always look at it and say, is it interesting? Is it telling a story? Because that's really the next level stuff, is where you actually make photographs that communicate something. And for a lot of people, that's the next level. For me, that's kind of how it started out, purely by accident, with telling a story, and photos were just illustration. And so to some extent, I think that, like, blogging or Instagram or anything where you're using captions and you're actually telling a narrative story and you're illustrating that text with a photo, it makes you more accountable to actually tell a story with a photo, and not just to be like, oh, here's a really cool picture of a turtle. There you go, Manny. You know, a turtle with, like, insane bokeh or bokeh or whatever, you know, blown out background, and, like, you know, expect people to like it. But where you're telling a story and you're having some relationship between the real world and the photo. And again, that's just totally my style and view. It's not something that's, you know, right or wrong by any stretch. Tiff says, I am the same way as a classical guitarist since the age of 7. Interesting. That is awesome. You need to do a YouTube channel about that. I know when someone is good or producing good work in their genre, but it doesn't mean I like it. I love bluegrass, though. There you go. I love bluegrass too, and my daughter, I have tried to expose her to a very eclectic taste, or a very wide range of musical tastes, and so she's been a big fan of bluegrass. Jerry Reed, which I don't know if Jerry Reed is technically bluegrass, but Jerry Reed is kind of one of her, and John Prine. She loves John Prine, and that's, like, the thing, like, one of the most proud moments I've ever had as a parent. No, I don't. By all means, you know, go for it, QA, and you're more than welcome to drop your Instagram. I think it would be cool if, like, you know, having more of us following each other on Instagram gives us an opportunity to connect, and I actually think I mentioned that before you hopped on earlier. I like the fact that I know more of you. Like, I'm getting more people in my Instagram feed and my Twitter feed that are coming from YouTube, and so I have more people that I can, like, geek out with and talk about photos and photography with, because a lot of the people on my feed are people that are more from my diabetes advocacy work or from my climbing work. And there's some interest in photographs, but, like, they're kind of like, you know, they've already scrolled past before they read anything about, you know, kind of my creative process going into the photos. And right now I'm doing a photo series from that climb that I mentioned, that I was doing stills instead of video to try to tell the story with the stills, and using a 35mm focal length because I wanted something that would force me to be closer and more detailed and take something that was limited and just a different perspective on climbing than what I usually would reach for or wanna share with people. So having more folks, yeah, by all means. Sorry. But yeah, the proudest I think I've been as dad is, like, when my daughter is, like, asking for John Prine. It's what's that song? The one about Kentucky and Mr. Peabody's coal mine there. That's like her favorite song there. For me personally, and Seth, I'm assuming that you're asking me, and because I know there are other folks on here. I believe the Femme Geek shoots a bit of film as well, although most of what I see on her Instagram is usually Fuji stuff. Paradise, Manny, thank you. Look at this. See, this is a really good object lesson, and I'm going to get to your question about video. I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. And I love following all of you guys. And Manny, if you follow me on Instagram at Living Vertical, and you actually, I'd be curious to see if you have work or anything like that. But there you go. See, Manny just filled in the name of the song that I was looking for, and that was super cool. So even trolls can be helpful. Yeah, so in terms of shooting film, and I'm going to get to the video question in just a second. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like bouncing around a little bit. In terms of shooting film, I like the Tri-X 400 just because it's cheap and plentiful. I am by no means like, I'm like in training wheels, I guess you could say, when it comes to shooting film. I like the Tri-X a lot, and the 400 because, like I said, it's forgiving and it's cheap. And so right now I've kind of gotten to a point where I shoot film like as a treat, and so then I'll develop my film like every year. I'll send a batch in and I'll get it developed, and I'll get surprises from like what I was shooting, a year ago, and like, oh, I remember that day. It's actually super nice to have that delay between taking the picture and getting to actually experience it, and then the experience of it also being in with a physical print too. Even though it's a small proof print, like, it's still a print, and that's awesome. That's a really nice thing. The film cameras that I have currently, I have a Rolly 35. It's not is it the EX or EF 35 or something? It's not the Rolly 35. It's like got some letters in front of it. It's it's a little automatic thing. And then I have the Minolta Highmatic F, which is really good, super sharp, little range finder. And then I have the I think I have another little range finder as well. And then I have, of course, the Nikon FE2. And the FE2 is what I shot. And I got with a lens. Like, I was buying a Pentax lens, and it came with a camera body. So I got a Pentax. It's not the K1000. It's the SP. It's a Spotmatic. One of the SP cameras. I forget the name of it right off the top of my head. So, I mean, I'm definitely bottom of the ladder when it comes to shooting film, but I have a handful, no surprise, like more cameras than I need for film too, but I wanted to be able to use some of these lenses for video and stills, and then, then go from there. Oh, okay. So... And I don't have all that to say. I don't have a favorite film really at this point. I haven't shot enough. And one of the things that I want to do is to get like a film developing kit and start doing that myself, which I haven't done at all yet, but I really want to do that. That's one of the things. But right now, again, with school and trying to maintain a YouTube channel and have even a remote semblance of seeing my family like once or twice a month, I don't realistically have time to be developing a lot of film, but I'm still shooting stuff, and like, I'm closing in. Usually in the wintertime is when I send my film out. There's a Photo Vision Prints in Oregon is who I use for my developing, because they're reasonably affordable. They do scans and prints for like $10 or so a roll for black and white, somewhere in that neighborhood. A little bit of shipping, a little bit of tax, but it's better than sending it to Rite Aid where they charge you like $1 million. Not really, but it costs like $50 to get a couple of rolls of film developed, and that was without scans. They would give you the negatives, but wouldn't even follow, or I'm sorry, I get this read. They wouldn't even scan the photos for you. Kit Bentley, okay, good to make the connection. Thank you. I've been following your stuff on the Instagram as well. Yeah, good to connect with you too. See, it was so nice to have this connectivity. It's super cool. So I got a question a little bit ago, and yeah, let's see here. To make an interesting video, and Bold, I hope you're still on here. Sorry for the little bit of the delay there. Should I plan it out or just do it? Great question. And that's something that I struggle with a lot, because to me, there is sort of a scary, that you create an opportunity to fail when you set a specific goal. And so that's kind of scary, and it's intimidating, and it feels uncomfortable. And then it also puts that burden on you to where you have to finish it because you made a plan. And if you don't finish it, then you're not following through, and like you have that accountability of a plan. It's both a good and a bad thing. I believe that depending on what your goals are, what you want to accomplish, I think that generally speaking, there should be a little bit of both. There should be a little bit of spontaneity where you are, and yeah, anybody who's on here who doesn't already follow me too, I'll get in on this too, at Living Vertical. I would love to, I'll follow you back, like people that I know are coming from my YouTube channel, I always follow back. But I'm sorry, back to the video question. You know, there's spontaneity that can really help, but also planning can really help. And that's something that I struggle with, because there are sometimes when I put no planning into a video, it is always just not good. Most of the time, it's not going to do, unless it's just for me, where I just want to say my piece about something and I don't care about anybody else in it, or where I just am, you know, thinking mostly about you guys, because, like, you know, 15 to 20 people are like the core of this channel, right? The majority of other people, they watch or don't watch, or maybe they binge at various points, or they find me looking for something. But if I'm trying to make something that's going to have a bigger impact, you know, there's a saying the Marines have: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And if you take the time to plan out what you're going to shoot, to make notes on it, at least detailed notes, you know, you don't have to say, I'm going to do this exactly this way, and I'm going to sketch out, you know, scene for scene, shot for shot, but to have an idea to say, these are the meat and potatoes that I need to have. And then if I can, here are some things that I would like to have. If nothing else, to say, here are some things that I think would be interesting, some elements that I would like to include. You know, like, I maybe want to get a close-up shot of this. Bullet points are a great way, King Yuzi says. I totally agree. Bullet points to say, you know, these are some things that I would like to see, some things that I expect to happen, and this is kind of like the view or the angle that I would like to take when shooting them. So you have sort of a visual, like a shot list, and it doesn't have to be, in my estimation, something that's super precise, because there's always a lot of different things that you can do. You can give yourself more options by, like, shooting in slow-mo, or like even shooting stills and animating stills. You know, a lot of cool things that you can do there. Like in the last video that I put out yesterday, you know, there's a handful of stills that I animated, and I'm going to play with that actually in the next video, where I'm going to review the X100F and kind of dig into that a little bit, as like kind of a main camera that I took on a climb recently, which I mentioned. So having an idea of what you expect to happen and the different ways that you want the viewer to experience it, and having a variety of shots before you get like really comfortable with it. Just having a lot of shots from a lot of different varieties can be useful, and then you kind of start to get a feel for, like, okay, more of this, less of that. But, you know, the general tight, medium, wide shots give you something to, you know, something to work with, so that you can, you know, have that progression from like a wider shot to a closer shot. And, you know, and there's a lot that I don't know that I'm learning about filmmaking, frankly, about, you know, really accentuating certain things and having more intention. The bottom line is that the more planning that you put into it, the more forethought that you have. It's not about following a plan as much as it is having a vision in your mind. This is my opinion as somebody who's never gone to film school and doesn't have any professional qualification other than, you know, a handful of videos on YouTube. You know, I'm some guy on the internet, right? But if you put thought into it and you build a vision in your head, and writing it out helps solidify that vision, then more things are going to happen just naturally, because you're going to have things in your mind where you're not stopping and saying, okay, hold up everybody, I need to get this shot this way, but that you're going to participate in a way that is more aligned with the thing that you see in your head, and you're going to have a higher percentage of what you wanted to capture when you are all done with it and you have to go and sit there and edit. And then the good news is that as you edit and you kick yourself because you messed up this shot because you didn't hold it long enough, or you didn't get it from the right angle, or you thought that it was, this, and you were kind of running and gunning and messed it up, those shots are going to be excellent reminders to you, because the next time that it happens, you're going to go out there and you're going to have that in your mind, and you're not necessarily going to be thinking exactly of like, oh, I have to, okay, I'm going to set the shot up this way. But in your mind, it's going to give you a little extra seasoning so that when you go out and you do it again, you're going to have something to build on. And that's why making a lot of work, why YouTube is so awesome, because YouTube can help you learn a lot of those lessons by just saying, okay, what sucked about the last video? How can I make it that much better? And then you build on that, and then you build on that, and you build on that. And there's always opportunities to take stuff and make it interesting. And I think that's one thing that we've learned from vlogging, is that you don't have to be doing amazing things all the time. I mean, certainly some vloggers are, but there are a lot of really good vloggers that have a lot of useful, interesting stuff where they can take something that's fairly mundane and they can use it as an exercise. You practice. It's like anything else. You want to get stronger, you go and you lift the weights, or you run, or whatever. And FemGeek here, this is, Tiff is one of the, I don't know how many folks here have been to film school, and I'm not trying to call you out on this or anything, but like Tiff has been to film school, and so I'm sure you have some knowledge to contribute here. I know based on mistakes that I've made, that's where I've gained my knowledge, and a handful of Film Riot stuff. But I think that practicing and and you've probably heard this anywhere, like perfection is the enemy of productivity. And like I have a friend who, well, actually he's not a friend, we're not on great terms because he stole one of my, anyways, whatever. We worked on a project together and it didn't go well. But the bottom line is he's a perfectionist, and he can make some really beautiful stuff, but it takes him forever to do it. And I'm just like, dude, it does, like, people aren't looking for perfect, because if you want perfect, you can go, you want perfect, you can go get that on Netflix, you can get that somewhere else. What you're doing here, like, it's free bowling. You get to try again tomorrow. And so you make the best thing that you can, and you try to do the best you can with a limited amount of time, put the most awesome into it in the most reasonable amount of time, and then you put it out there and say, this is the best I have. Yeah, strive for doing it. Just get it done, and then improve on it. Because if you try to, like, if you make the one and then you do it again, you're going to find that the second time around, just based on your familiarity, it's going to be easier. So do it again, do it again, do it again. So planning and then execution. Make a plan, execute the plan. That's the way that I think anything in life is or should be accomplished. Make a plan, execute it. And, some plans can be more clear, some are just more general. If you don't know exactly what's going to happen, like on a day of climbing, for example, and I'm going to get to the question that I got here from the Shooting Range TV. I love that question, actually, well, I'll get to that in a second. In a day of climbing, I know that there are certain points that I can expect. So there's the hike in, there is taking a break for water, there are going to be, scenic opportunities along that way, and I know there's going to be, starting to climb, I know there's going to be the summit, the descent, and then good light hiking back out. Right? These are all things that I know to expect. Now, I don't know exactly what moments are going to happen. I don't have to plan everything out, but I can make a mental note and say, all right, this story is going to be about, X, Y, Z, and so these are the moments that I need to be able to have, and I have a plan going into it. And I almost always have to modify most of that plan, but having a plan to start with is very, very helpful. Gives me some structure, but it's not like a hard and fast guideline that it's like, no, we have to stop here because this is where I plan to shoot this, you know. So yeah, I hope this is helpful, and whether it's this video or anywhere, you're always welcome to, you know, bounce specific questions beyond this about something that you're doing. I'm always happy to, you know, give input and try to help where I can. Yeah, totally. And Tiff says, here's a tip that's practice for learning how to write scenes. If you have magazines, cut out random photos and make little stories from them. It's a great way to learn the beginning, middle, and end. That is amazing. And writing is so, so, so helpful. Understanding just, even if it's that simple construct, like Tiff said, like beginning, middle, and end, or like question, conflict, and resolution. I don't know if that's something I'm remembering or if those are just random words that I'm putting together that seem to make sense with stories, but those are all things that you want to put out there, like however you organize that structure, even if it's just in those 3 bullet points of saying, okay, what's the question that we're starting out with? What's the conflict that's like, you know, making a problem, and then what's the resolution, how it ends. And if you look at almost everything in very simplest terms, a book I would highly, highly recommend, and I don't recommend many books, which I should and I will at some point, but like that's usually not something I talk about here for whatever reason. There's a book by, I think it's Stephen Pressfield, not The War of Art, but it's a book called Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit. And it's all about storytelling. And it's very simple, very well written. I believe it's a free PDF that you can download. It's a free ebook, I think, or it's very inexpensive. Stephen Pressfield also wrote, I believe he's the screenwriter or one of the screenwriters for Legend of Bagger Vance. He's done some other stuff in Hollywood. But this is just about storytelling, and it's nobody wants to read your shit. And it just like makes so much sense. I would highly recommend that. Highly recommend the writing, the exercise that you mentioned there, Tiff. That is a great idea as well. And that's why I love these live streams, because I always learn stuff that helps me, because I'm still learning a lot about all this stuff too from you guys. So Shooting Range TV asks, if I could go back in time, what would you tell yourself to stay away from or learn more about as it relates to photography? That's a really good question. That's tough. That's really tough. Because there's an extent to which I feel like so much of what I've learned has been through the mistakes that I made. I think that at the bottom line is just to be practical and not to worry about what you don't have, but allow what you have to shape the way that you tell your story. That there's not really a way, there's not a, like the limitations, and I know this may sound a little bit overgeneralization wise or a little glib, but like that, you know, limitations are not a bad thing. And having limitations intentionally can be really helpful, and certainly having just limitations of budget, location, age, challenges in your life are huge benefits really when it comes to authenticity and story. And they give you the opportunity to see the world in a way that means something, that actually means something. Because when we see, like, you know, pretty photos, like how many times have you gone on a Flickr and you see a photo that's beautiful, but you're just like, that's cool, I couldn't do that, I've never been there, it doesn't mean anything to me, that must be awesome. And you're imagining, you know, some like guy with a French accent and like, you know, slick back hair and, you know, I don't know. I mean, that's my stereotypical of like sort of artist slash greasy salesperson is what I envision when I see, and it, I mean, totally, I mean, that's just in my head, right? But my point is that, like, when I see pictures that are a little more gritty, even pictures that aren't necessarily perfect, but pictures that really tell me something about who's on the other side of that camera, you know, and that's a super important thing. That means something, and like the story means so much more than the image quality. And just carry less stuff. make your goal be to do with the absolute least that you possibly can instead of going the other way. And the other thing I would tell myself if I had to go back in time was don't spend $2,000 on a freaking dynamic perception time-lapse slider thing, because you're going to get tired of doing that and realize that everybody who has a camera can go point it at a place where there's not light pollution and get really awesome Milky Way shots, and it's not that fun, and it takes a whole bunch of time, and it's a pain in the ass, and it's expensive, and then you can't sell it because what are you going to do, ship this like huge block of metal like somewhere on eBay? Like, yeah, you probably could, but then they've released new ones. And so nothing against dynamic perception, their sliders are superb, and I shot some really awesome, if I do say so myself, you know. So that's what I have. I think that I love Tiff getting into this here. The one thing I would tell myself is don't take out student loans, but honestly I wouldn't be the person I am and like if I warned too much. So I've accepted I'm a late in life success story. There's a huge amount of wisdom there. You know, whether it's just not getting in debt, generally speaking, because people always ask, like, oh, well, I have $2,000 budget, like, what camera should I buy for $1,999? It's like, okay, you have a $2,000 budget, spend maybe $700, get a G7 and some vintage lenses with a speed booster. You can shoot 4K video, and you can do great photos using manual focus, and then take the other, like $1,250 or $1,200 or whatever, my math isn't great at this time of night, and go somewhere with that. You know, like, your budget isn't just about buying gear, your budget is about creating an experience, and if your budget is all tied up in gear and stuff, then it's like, okay, what am I going to point my camera at? One of the simplest things that my friend Martin has said, you know, that makes a lot of sense, very simple. It's like, if you want to take better pictures, you got to point your camera at something that's better. You know, you got to put yourself in a position where you can do that, and a lot of that is managing your budget and your time. And yeah, a lot of good hindsight here, and I mean, hell, that could be a really interesting topic for just an entire video of, like, you know, what mistakes we see beginners making, or like things that we would redo if we could do things differently. And you know, I would buy cheaper stuff to start out with, because, like Tiff said, you know, financially there's less burden there. You know, you save money, but also, like, the first couple of years of photography, you really don't know who you are as a photographer, and you don't know what you need, and so you just buy based on what you want, and you wind up running into a lot of debt that you're never going to get back, in terms of camera bodies that depreciate rapidly and lenses that you don't really use, and then, like, you're either stuck with them or you wind up selling them on eBay. And, like, I learned a lot about who I am as a photographer in the first couple of years, but unfortunately I also spent a lot of money. Yeah, student loans are challenging. I'm actually, well, I got some student loans, not for photography. I have student loans still outstanding. Although the one piece of advice that one thing in my life that I have actually listened to my dad on, and that I would say he was right about, was staying local for college and saving money that way, and I did, you know. Yeah, and then you find yourself going back and loving vintage lenses, exactly. Although the lenses that I bought initially, I got, you know, I was way into the full frame stuff, and that kind of took me down a path of, you know, more expensive gear. And, like, yeah, I really loved the Milky Way photos, and it, you know, scratched an itch that I had to be able to shoot those, like, you know, super clean, you know, low light Milky Way shots. Like, I really like those. But then you realize that once you do that, then you get bored of it. And, like, you have to think ahead. That's another thing. Think ahead. Don't think about, like, where you want to be. Think about where you're going to want to be after you get to where you want to be, so that you can make better long-term decisions. Because it's like, you know, I didn't really think about, oh, well, what am I going to want to do once I have a camera where I can take nice Milky Way shots? Am I going to sell those? Am I going to print those? Am I going to do something with those? Am I going to be able to take other kinds of photographs that are, you know, particularly useful, or am I just going to have my money tied up in a camera system that's going to work really well in one area of the world where there's not a lot of light pollution, where you need this kind of setup, and then elsewhere you're kind of just like, well, I would rather have the money. Superkit says, I'm coming out of a bad period in my photography of buying camera things. Totally pointless, did not improve my game. Now using a much more refined kit, same. And I've like done that a few times. Then you think like, oh, okay, I'm on top of it. And then the worst thing that can happen to you, well, not the worst thing that can happen to you, of course, but like one of the worst things that can happen to you is like when you kind of get out of debt, and then you get to that point and you're just like, oh, okay, like I don't have debt. I should probably really look into this new camera, because I think this camera is gonna, it's got this like new sensor and it's got this thing and the autofocus is faster. All these different things that you just start feeling like, ooh, now I'm empowered to buy stuff again. And it's like, that's the warning sign, and it's so hard to resist, but we all deal with it, And Kit, you said something here about being able to capture the Milky Way with the XT1. And the thing is, and you're totally right, and I've taken some Milky Way shots with, I've taken Milky Way shots with the RX100 Mark IV, little 1-inch sensor. And again, they're not like beautiful shots, but the question that I should have asked myself, and granted none of these cameras I don't think were around when I spent money on the Nikon 24 f1.4 and the full frame D600, which was it was a pretty penny that I put into that. The question is, how much of a difference is there between how much difference is there in quality that I really need, that's worth paying that much more for, between that full frame, like top of the line rig versus an XT1. And I'm fairly certain that like there probably is a little bit of difference in image quality between a full frame f1.4. That's a big fast lens. It's beautiful on a full frame camera. It does great stuff. But at the same time, does that justify spending the money on that? And especially versus the overlap. Whereas with the XT1, yeah, the image quality, you might, if you pixel peep, you could probably be like, oh, I don't know about that. That's not, the image quality is terrible. I need good image quality. And it's like, dude, you know what? Like, come on. If you're shooting billboards, or you're shooting, a black cat in a barn on a moonless night, then fine, okay? Then maybe you need this, but like I get a little frustrated when people are talking about that, because I've lived through that and I've done a lot of that, and the reality is that for the difference in image quality, I could have gotten a lot more utility and usability out of something like an XT1, like you say, than a full frame camera that is specialized to do one thing really, really, really well. And so I guess that's one of the things too, one of the lessons that I've learned, is that versatility is something that I appreciate more. And I think maybe I appreciate it more because I no longer have a vision of myself or my goal set up as being a professional. Where it used to be that like, oh, I'm a professional and I'm able to, I still theoretically have an LLC, like I can write stuff off of my taxes that I buy, even if it's not my primary source of income. I think I'm not, I'll have to ask my accountant. Maybe I'm condoning tax fraud there, but whatever, they won't miss it because I don't have any money anyway. So it's like, they're not going to miss what was never there. But there's a certain extent to which I felt overly comfortable with more specialized gear that was more expensive and less useful, because of the fact that it's like, oh, well, I can use this in a professional context of this scenario that I'm making up in my head that I am kind of going towards, and I might need it for that. And it empowered me to make dumb decisions. Or not dumb decisions, but less useful decisions. Whereas now, as an amateur, I'm like, okay, nobody's going to be paying me for this, so I want something that's going to give me what I want, which is I want to have something that's small and versatile and that does a bunch of stuff really well, and it doesn't have to do any one thing, any like outlying task with world-class excellence. It just needs to do well enough to the point where I can make images that I'm happy with and that I'm proud of, and like that shift towards utility versus perfection, or specificity, away from specificity and towards usefulness, is something that has really helped me enjoy my photography just so much more, and I think make better financial decisions. A couple good comments here from Tiff saying that I'm so happy I stumbled across the XT2. I really love shooting with it, and I'm glad I've separated my photo cameras from my video. That makes a big difference in buying gear. Interesting, because what brought me to the XT2 in the first place was that I wanted a camera to fuse those two things together. I wanted a camera that did video and photo. And, as much as I've done that, I think that I found a camera that really does do both at a excellent level that I'm happy with, which is the GH5. And I would argue probably the Olympus, whatever their flagship camera, I don't think it has the beefy video features that the GH5 does. But I feel like the GH5, while still not perfect, because yes, it could use a little bit more help on the low light with the ISO, and maybe if they put like a slightly larger sensor in there, that is a camera that does just beefy yeoman's work. I mean, it is a good camera for stills and video with just that there are definitely, you can engineer a scenario where you wouldn't get good results for it with stills. But I would argue that probably for most types of scenarios, the GH5 is that. But the part of the problem is when you have a camera that has that much versatility, you also sacrifice some character. So when I just want to have a camera in my hand, it's not the GH5. That's not the camera that I reach for instinctively out of love. That's the camera that I reach for out of, okay, like I need to make something, and I need to have options when I make it, So it's like, it is a trade-off. And so kind of recently what I've wound up doing, ironically, even though the GH5 is that one camera to rule them all, I really think that, like, for me, let me put it this way, for me, in the way that I shoot, the GH5 is there. It's there. I mean, yes, I would like to be able to get like really beautiful Milky Way shots with the camera that I'm using for everything else, and no, the GH5 is not there. That's like kind of the one thing. But like aside from those specialty things, and again, it's style and where you shoot and what you shoot and how you shoot. And I guarantee you that if I were out in the middle of the backcountry of Wyoming and I see the Milky Way, I guarantee you that I could get a shot of it with the GH5 and the glass that I have. I could get a shot that would be good enough that I could post on my Instagram and that I could print and that I could hang on my wall, and that would be a beautiful shot. I would still know in my mind, even though everybody else would be like, oh, that's amazing, I love that. Like, I would still know in my mind that it would have been a little, it could have gotten a little bit more pushed a little more out of it if it was a different camera or different sensor or different, what have you. But that's me. That's my problem. That's not the camera's fault, So it's, but the funny thing is though, I started this looking for one camera to rule them all. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't the Fuji. I found the GH5 as being the one technical tool that can do everything that I need, just about. But at the same time, that precision that the GH5 has made me also appreciate the soft qualities, and I don't mean like sharp imagery or soft imagery. I mean like the less tangible, the warm fuzzy stuff about cameras that I love about Fuji. And so now that I found the one camera that can do everything, I still enjoy shooting like this. I love it. I just love having this camera with me. I love having it in my hand. I love how fun it is. And it made me realize that, yes, I do want to make beautiful stuff. And there are some times when I'm going to go out and I'm going to get after it, and that's my goal, where I just want to make things that are just beautiful. But there's a lot of times when I want to have an experience and just have fun with my camera. Like, this is not cheap stuff. If it is not serving me, then what the hell am I doing? Am I wasting my time with it? Like, it should be making my life better, instead of looking at it from the other end where it's like, ooh, how can I go out and buy more? Like, it's funny. It's just changed my relationship with the gear. So it's kind of like a alchemist journey, where I've kind of gone through all these different phases and cycles, and started off looking for one thing, found what I thought I was looking for, and realized that I actually kind of had to go back the other direction, gained an appreciation for separating the video and the stills, because there's a certain quietness of shooting videos that I just love. Well, Mario, I hate to disagree with you on that one. If you've never looked through a full-frame viewfinder, he says, you don't do it, you'll be irreversibly spoiled. I occasionally will pick up my D600, and I will look through it, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And it's like, I'm lost. I have no idea, like, how do you use this thing? I mean, it's nothing against the full-frame DSLR cameras. They're great, and there's a lot to love there too. But separating the photos and the videos, that's one of the reasons why I separated it out and left my video camera behind on that one that I shot with just the X100F. That's going to be the next video coming out on here. It was like I wanted to be in a different headspace. I wanted to be in a still photography headspace where I'm thinking and having fun, yeah. And same here, Tiff, on the Fuji for making videos. I'm glad that I, just as an exercise, and also just to kind of stick it to all the people who are being all snobby and being like, Fuji doesn't make video cameras, why would you do that in the first place? That's stupid. And it's like, well, the film that I shot in Oman, like, pre-autofocus fixing update on the Fuji X-T2, I'm decently proud of that. I put a lot of work into the filming and the edit, and it was cool. I'm glad I did it. But yeah, totally agree. Just for, like, I want to have, whenever I'm shooting, I want my shooting to bring me further into the experience, and not take me out of it by making me focus here on the camera. But I want to know that my camera has its self figured out, or that it's can be assigned what it needs to do, and that I can spend my time really moving with the camera and doing all that other stuff, and that's really the end goal. And like, Fuji have done that amazingly well with still photography, which is why all of us here have some appreciation, I believe, for Fuji cameras, is that even if they don't have the full frame image quality at 100%, or like with certain types of situations, they're not full frame cameras, but the experience of shooting a Fuji, it just feels so damn good. Like, it's just like, it's amazing. And you get to really fully experience something because you have a camera, rather than being distracted from it because you have a camera. And it's like an amplifier of the experience. I love that, So let's see here, a couple interesting comments. Superkit asks what I use to edit videos. I use Final Cut Pro X, way more user-friendly in my opinion. And again, mileage may vary, and there are some people that are, I would call it moderately to mildly snobby about Premiere versus, the Final Cut Pro, because of the fact that Premiere is officially pro software. And again, that's maybe me just being ignorant and snobby by calling them snobby, because maybe it's that they just have a different experience level and knowledge base than I do. But if you're doing single projects by yourself and you're not sharing and exporting and round tripping through other programs, and you just want something that's one stop, Final Cut Pro X can do just about everything that Premiere can do, but it is insanely user-friendly compared to Premiere. And I've tried Premiere a number of times, just like Snapchat. It's like, I try it and I'm like, I want to understand this, I want to see why everyone likes this, and I just hate it. I hate it. Final Cut Pro X, super easy, and I like it. And again, I think it has to do too with, like King Uzi said, you like Premiere and you think it's easy. You know, and DaVinci Resolve, again, haven't tried that, and like, for me, I think a lot of it is just like it's like back in the day when people used to be skiing or snowboarding, and oh, skiing is way easier, snowboarding is easier, and it's what you learn on. I learned on skis. I think skiing is way easier, but there are people that are like, dude, I could never. How do you ski? How do you do that? It's just like, yeah, to each their own. You got to find what fits your style. I would, to me, from a user friendliness standpoint, and if you're not like really, like if you like the Adobe products, I guess is one way to look at it. If you like the Adobe products and the way they do things makes sense to you, and you're just like, you go in Photoshop and, you know, maybe other Adobe software, and you're just like, yeah, totally got it. Very intuitive for me. Then Premiere is probably something that you'll pick up real quick, maybe. I mean, that's my guess. For me, I started off with like iMovie, and that was, you know, starting off with iMovie was kind of the thing that made Final Cut Pro X so easy, because it's basically the same user, you know, user interface, and stylistically, if you know, if you're a Mac user, a lot of times the Mac products, they all kind of have their own feel to them that makes it easy to learn. I have zero experience with DaVinci Resolve, but I feel like, Peter, that you are at a different level, and I haven't seen any stuff from any of you guys, so I don't know, but just based on what I hear from you guys, like I feel like some of you guys are on a different level with video editing than I might be. Yeah, Adobe Creative Cloud, I only have, I only have just the basic photo package, and sometimes I like upgrade to get the Acrobat stuff, but like I've tried After Effects, and it's super powerful, and I love that. And like I've tried Premiere, and Premiere is cool because you can use it with After Effects, but it does render much more slowly, and it's just like there's just too many moving parts for me. I really, really like the Final Cut Pro X, so that's what I use, you know. But yeah, that's my that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Oh, affiliate links for the thumb grip. Yeah, I got some questions about thumb grips. Yeah. That is correct. They have, I think I have the thumb grip in my affiliate links. If you look at my other videos, I'm almost certain that I have that on there. In fact, let me look here and confirm this, because I have my computer right at hand, and I can tell you, I think it's LensMate is who makes it. And it's nice, right? It's kind of snazzy, adds a little bit of color to what you're working with, and the little red button, it's pretty sweet. Yes, thumb grip. I believe this is the one too. Let me just double check that this is the one, because it might not be the blue one, because I had a black one for my I had a black thumb grip for my XT2, and that might be the one that I have listed here. Yeah, oops, that's the wrong one. I have the XT2 thumb grip, not the one for the X100F. But I'll tell you what I will do. I will drop it in the link below, or I will put links to this thumb grip in the show notes on this video if you are interested in using the affiliate link. I mean, you don't have to, of course, but if you do, it'll be, I'll put it in there too, so anybody is interested. Thanks for the love there, Bold. I appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy these conversations and chatting with you guys. I really get a lot of love and support and ideas, inspiration, information, just all that creative fuel basically from everybody on this channel. And so it's funny, when I think about how much priority I put on my YouTube channel, whether it's these live streams or like the work that I do, which admittedly has fallen off. Like I'm down to kind of like one vlog a week and a live stream, and even that with everything that's been going on with Stephanie having cancer and getting that treated and all whatnot in the last couple of weeks, maybe even harder to follow, kind of get into a rhythm and get into a pace. But like I get a lot out of these live streams too, and it's I appreciate all you guys that are here and that make an effort to participate, because it makes me feel so good. Like every week, like it's grown like a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and like that's and I would actually I'm considering doing more than one live stream a week, like maybe doing a Monday Friday deal, something like that. So anyways, friends, Red Anks, good to see you here. I saw you popped in there with a comment here. I don't know if you've been here all along and just lurking, but cool. Well, I hope that this is a good way to launch your weekend, King Yuzi, and frankly, all of you guys and gals here on the live stream. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I would love to have you subscribe to the channel, enable notifications. Let's keep in touch. I love doing these sort of random journeys through creative discussions of all different sorts with you guys, which is mostly open forum Q&A type of stuff, as you've seen here tonight, even with the occasional troll, which he actually helped me remember the name to one John Prine song I was trying to think of too, so it can't be all bad. On Instagram, on Twitter, I am at Living Vertical. If you follow me there, I have a variety of stuff on my Twitter that's sort of about like my type 1 diabetes advocacy that I do and all that stuff. I am also on Patreon. A handful of you are supporting my work on Patreon, which of course patreon.com/livingvertical, and I am getting printed work out to you guys ASAP, and certainly that helps so much, helps me to be able to do these types of streams and to keep making work and keep serving you guys as best I can. And I love hearing from you, hearing ways that I can give back, help more, do things that scratch itches that you have. And a lot of my inspiration and ideas come from Q&As also. And then you can go to sleep. Yes, King Yuzi, I promise. Think about photo challenges. That's something I'm going to be talking about in the next couple of live streams, as I'm making a plan of how to execute some really cool photo challenges so that we can do those together. Are you guys interested in doing that? Do you have ideas for that? Is that like one of those things, it's a nice idea, but like, I probably wouldn't bother? Like, is that something that you guys would be willing to participate in, that you would want to do? Maybe I'll do a survey or something like that, or, drop a comment if you're watching this and you've watched 82 minutes of this live stream after the fact. God bless you if that's the case. If anybody has any more rapid fire questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for being here, and have a good weekend. Stay safe with the hurricanes and all that stuff. Rapid fire question: Chronic Lifter, Lumix G85 or Sony A6500 for video? I would have to say G85 hands down. The value for money on that camera, especially when you factor in the cost and availability of lenses and the ease with which you can get vintage lenses off of eBay, like we were talking about here. If you go back to the beginning of the first live stream, there's 2 tonight because the battery died, but if you go back to the beginning and some of the other videos I've done about that, just the value for money, definitely G85, unless you have to be shooting like by candlelight somewhere and you need to be able to, see fine details on everybody's face in candlelight, which I say that sort of facetiously because, yes, the G85 has some limitations in terms of the autofocus, and it has some limitations in terms of the low light performance, but it is a fantastic camera for the money. Weatherproof and very good stills, very good video. The in-body image stabilization is top-notch. And yeah, you got to work around the autofocus a little bit. But if you're shooting video, you shouldn't, you don't want to be really relying on autofocus anyways. And the menu system is very friendly. The touch screen is super good. And Panasonic cameras are burly. They are burly and they execute well. They are tools that perform. So, yeah, thank you, Chronic Lifter. Are you? How did you find my channel? Are you, when you say Chronic Lifter, is that a reference to a chronic illness? And I ask because I have a chronic illness. I have type 1 diabetes, which maybe is how you found my channel. I don't know. Or are you just chronically in the gym lifting weights, which is totally cool too. That I have some of that in my approach too. Addicted to working out. Well, there are much worse things that you could be addicted to. Just make sure you take care of yourself and are not getting overuse injuries. And think about I have no idea who you are, how old you are, obviously, but I've done a lot of training in my time, mostly climbing related, although right now I'm not in peak physical condition. And I would say a lot of people start off with great enthusiasm and they don't do they're not thinking about whether they're going to be able to continue doing this stuff when they're 20 years down the road, when they're 40, 50 years old. And so a lot of times people get overzealous, but I'm sure if you're that into working out, you probably already know that stuff. So I'm just kind of preaching to the choir. Yeah, lifting is good. It does activate, recruit muscle fibers. It's so good. But I mean, anybody, as long as you have something that is active, that gets you out of your head and into the real world, then that's the important thing, I think. At least one of the most important things, right? So, all right. Any more rapid fire questions and or leave comments below once the chat has concluded. I really appreciate all you guys being here, and I hope to hear from you, see you, all that stuff around. Yes, we will see you guys. Peter, good night. Tiff, good night. Good night. Everybody checking out here. And I am going to conclude this. I have a hard time stopping because I get interesting questions. And I'm like, that makes me think of another thing. And I could literally go on for hours, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to point out how this lens makes my arms look way longer than they actually are. Because my arms aren't really this long and skinny, I promise you. I mean, they're not. I don't have huge arms, but like, come on. All right, y'all have a good night.